listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Good evening, one and all, and welcome to the X-Zone. My name is Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. If you'd like to listen to our live show or the archive shows that we have available at 724-365, all you have to do is go to one simple website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, we can be found at X-Zone Radio TV, and our email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. My first guest tonight, X-Zone Nation, is the Right Reverend Brian Keneipp. He is the Executive Director of the American headquarters of the Aetherius Society, a registered nonprofit religious, scientific, and educational corporation established in California in 1960. Brian worked over 20 years with the Aetherius Society founder, the late Dr. George King, to help build the Aetherius Society and perform spiritual missions on behalf of and for humanity in cooperation with the Ascended and Cosmic Masters. He is actively involved in several field missions performed by the Society, which are designed to help balance world karma, to bring greater world peace, and to aid in the salvation and enlightenment of mankind. He is a bishop in the Aetherius Church, as well as co-editor of the New Age journal Cosmic Voice. Brian has lectured in America and corporate management. He retains a balanced, common-sense approach to the sometimes mysterious world of metaphysics. His first book, Operation Earthlight, A Glimpse into the World of the Ascended Masters, is about some of his extraordinary experiences while working with Dr. King. And Brian, welcome to the X-Zone.
Good to be here, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Brian, how did you get involved with the Aetherius Society?
Well, I was in college in Illinois, and I came across the Aetherius Society. And at the time, I was into yoga pretty intensely, and a little bit of parapsychology, but mainly I was studying pre-med, so I was pretty focused on studies. But I came across this organization at the university, and I went to one of its meetings, and I read a book, which was the main book at the time, still is, of the Aetherius Society, called The Nine Freedoms. And I read through that book, and it answered, it put so many things together from UFOs and spirituality and mystical traditions and the like, and it just something clicked in me and really felt like that was it. And from then on, I've been kind of moving westward, shall we say.
What can you tell us about the late Dr. George King?
Well, he was a very special man. He was a master of yoga, able to raise the Kundalini to a high center, and in doing so, he brought two very accurate messages and very important messages for Earth. He was also, personally, he was a very intense, very powerful. He had a great sense of humor. He was both fun and intense to be around. He was always demanding the best of people around him, and he had an absolutely singular desire and a goal to help mankind as much as he possibly could, and to help others who want to help mankind as much as they possibly could.
You know, I understand that Dr. King also believed that there was life on other planets and that Mother Earth is a sentient goddess. How did he come to these conclusions?
Oh, well, he was. He had regular communication with beings on other planets.
Oh, he did?
And he also, oh, yes, he had over 600 transmissions, 600 communications with beings from other worlds. He also visited in an astral body Mars and Venus. So he was quite certain that there was life on other planets, to be sure. The Mother Earth, he actually, in the late 70s, he actually went down, believe it or not, and visited the center of Earth, where you can actually, it's a long story.
All right, why don't we do this? We're going to take a short break, Brian, and I'd love to hear that story when we come back. Thanks so much for joining us. Always a great pleasure talking to you and the other members of the Aetherius Society that we have had the pleasure of having on the show over the years. Exonation, my guest this hour is the Right Reverend Brian Keneipp, and his website. Pardon?
That's correct.
Okay, and his website is www.aetherius.org, and we'll be back on the other side of the short break. Don't go away. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Exonation, Brian Keneipp is our special guest of this hour. And Brian, you started to tell us about the travels to the middle of the Earth, and I'd love to hear more of this.
Well, Dr. King was, one of his main missions on Earth was to develop missions that would help the karma of mankind as we move into the New Age. And one of those missions is called Operation Sunbeam. And he developed this mission where mankind would be able to give back quite a sizable and important amount of energy to the Logos or the heart of the Mother Earth herself, who's a very evolved sentient being. And in connection with that work, he was granted an audience with three galactic beings called the Protectors of the Flame of the Mother Earth, and they reside in the center of the Earth, and they kind of protect the Mother Earth in different ways. And one time when he went down there in connection with Operation Sunbeam, he was granted to see a small fraction of the Logos of Earth herself, and he wrote about it in an excellent book called A Visit to the Logos of Earth, and it's just an astounding read because you learn so much about the Mother Earth herself and what she's had to go through to take care of mankind and to give us a space sanctuary for these hundreds of thousands of years.
Fascinating story. You know, I just remembered that there's some news that was recently released about the discovery of Planet X. And how does this work into what Dr. King was talking about?
Well, it's hard to put it all together in a short minute or two, but basically, mankind is, our evolution, you could say, is coming to a crossroads because the Mother Earth, being a sentient being, she needs to evolve. She needs to raise her vibrations. And this needs to happen sometime in the next several centuries, which is actually a fairly short time for our evolution. And once these vibrations are raised, then only individuals on Earth who are above a certain level of evolution will be able to remain here. And we aren't talking billions, we're talking maybe in the order of millions. So it's quite a small percentage of the individuals. And those who will not be able to remain on Earth will be sent to another planet where they will then continue their evolution and the development. And this other planet, we have been told, is in the solar system. And so it could be this new Planet X. Although I have to say, if it is the Planet X, it is not going to be a very nice place because it's awfully far away, this Planet X.
Yeah, it seems that it's way out there. And I was talking to somebody.
Way out there.
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody yesterday who said, basically, in the realm of existences, planet Earth is a boot camp, preparing everyone else for everything else. How does that fit in with what Dr. King was talking about?
Well, that's not bad. I kind of like that. It's a class. We see it in our teachings and Dr. King's teachings as a classroom, and so the inhabitants of Earth, there's lots more than the 7 billion on the physical realm.
Yeah.
But the inhabitants of Earth, we're learning lessons on Earth. We're learning compassion. We're learning how to use love. We're learning how to control this great power within us called the power of Kundalini. And as we learn these lessons, you spend lives and lives and lives learning them. And once you learn your lesson and are able to control this Kundalini force and raise it up to the crown chakra at will, which takes a very, very long time to do, then you can leave Earth and go to other planets and go on and other parts of the solar system and even beyond. So I like that. That's not a bad analogy. Boot camp.
So for our listeners who may be new to the X Zone as well as to the work of Dr. King, how would you describe Kundalini?
Well, Kundalini is a primordial force within every man and woman, child. It's an energy which is well known to the East, to the followers of yoga, traditional yoga. It's a power which that's you could even say that it's like the negative or the female aspect of us. You could say it that way. Whereas the God spark in the top of the head, you could say is the positive or the male aspect, and the object is to raise this great power of Kundalini up the spine, out into the through the Sushumna, out into the crown chakra, and if you can do that at will, then you achieve cosmic consciousness and eventually ascension, and then you leave Earth.
How come?
Does that explain it?
Yeah, it did to me, and I'm sure the listeners are catching on. How come this mysticism, this energy, wasn't known until recently here in the West, and yet it seems that it was common knowledge in the East?
Well, the West has gone a different direction. We've gone more science direction. There's nothing wrong with science. In a way, it's the perfect marriage is between the two. You want to have the mysticism of the East and the science and the practicality of the West. And when you add these two almost yin and yangs together, then you will start to have a really decent, good civilization on Earth. So it's just a direction that we went. We just didn't go that direction so much. Although it was known about by the mystics in the West. They did know about Kundalini, but it wasn't generally known so much.
How are the extraterrestrials helping us these days?
Well, that's always a good question. People wonder, they say, well, if there's these wonderful beings out there, why don't they help us more, shall we say? Well, I would say, why not help us more? And let me answer that question first. As this is a classroom, we have certain lessons. And like if you have a 12-year-old son and he's got to go through algebra, he has to learn algebra.
Right.
And he has to do the homework. He has to learn algebra. You can't do the homework for him. He won't learn the algebra. And so likewise, we have created upon our planet some serious problems, I think we can all agree with.
I agree.
And these are our problems. And when we learn to solve them, then we grow, then we learn, then we understand the importance of love and compassion, and we start to access this power of Kundalini. And so they can't directly help us too much because we have to learn this ourselves. However, they are helping us tremendously. Every great being who came to Earth, whether it be the Master Jesus or the Lord Buddha, Sri Krishna, Sankarsana, many others, came from, we believe, other planets. They came to give to mankind the spiritual truths. So that's one great way they've helped us. They've also helped us more recently. There's a satellite which comes into orbit, believe it or not, 4 times a year, and it is invisible, and it moves the photons around the force screen to keep its cloak of invisibility, and its job is to increase the amount of energy for all those who are doing any kind of good. And so if you're a Christian or a Buddhist or even an atheist but helping other people, this energy will help you be more effective in your works. And this, in effect, is a great way of kind of speeding up our karma, because if you can increase the bang for the buck, in other words, the amount of energy you put out will do more, then you will actually get back more from the law of karma, and that kind of speeds up our evolution. So that they help in those kinds of ways.
So where does this satellite come from?
Many of the satellites in this solar system are manufactured on Mars. So I don't know for sure where this particular one comes from, but it would be a good bet that it would have come from Mars.
If all these satellites are being manufactured on Mars, why hasn't any of our space probe missions to Mars picked up any of this energy?
Very good question. There's many levels of existence. For example, if somebody dies, they don't cease to exist. They go to another realm of Earth. Mm-hmm. You can contact them through a medium, for example. Sometimes you can even see them. Sometimes when you have a near-death experience, you go through this tunnel and you see people. Well, the people that you're seeing are living on other realms, other levels of dimension, shall we say. And our main level of existence on Earth is the physical realm. But it's a fairly low energy level. Beings on other planets, they reside on higher energy levels. And so if we were on a same energy level as they, I think, let's say, for example, level 5, we would be able to see their spacecraft. We would be able to see their flying saucers. We would be able to see them if we go and visit Mars. But if we go on this level, just like, for example, there's billions of people on the other realms all around us, but we can't see them. There's cities, there's mountains, there's oceans on other realms right on Earth, which we don't see, unless you are psychic or unless you travel up the astral planes. And so likewise, when we land on Mars, we don't, on the physical realm, we don't see the other realms of Mars, which is where the activity is on Mars.
So it's just a matter of tuning into the right frequency in order to see and hear what we're missing at this point in our evolution.
Exactly right. There was a great episode of Star Trek, Next Generation, years ago, where the Enterprise was circling this planet, and the planet was just about to develop warp drive, and they went down and tried to help them develop warp drive. One of Riker, if you remember Riker, he was discovered. Yeah. And some of the leaders found out about him, and they finally decided that it would be too upsetting for mankind, for them, to understand that there is existence outside of their planet.
Brian, we're going to have to do a little bit of a cliffhanger here. I've got to take my news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, Brian Keneipp is our special guest, www.aetherius.org. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We'll be back after this news break. Don't go away. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking to the Right Reverend Brian Keneipp right now. He is with the Aetherius Society. And the Aetherius Society was founded in 1955 in London, England, by Western Master of Yoga, Dr. George King. It has grown throughout the years to its current worldwide status, including having centers in Africa, America, Australia, Canada, Great Britain, Portugal, and New Zealand. Now, these teachings of the Aetherius Society begin with time-honored truths from the world's holy works, such as the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, and the Buddhist text. It includes key concepts such as karma and reincarnation, the importance of love and service to others, and the gradual evolution of life stream back to the source of all things, the Absolute, or God. From here, the teachings of the Aetherius Society leap into the cosmos themselves, explaining both our sordid history and our fast-approaching future. There are many extraterrestrials visiting our Earth at this significant time. They are interested in how we handle the coming of change, yet most are not allowed to interfere. However, our most important visitors are coming from our own solar system. These advanced beings have helped mankind throughout the centuries, through mainly from behind the scenes. They exist on a higher vibration matrix than mankind, yet have a great interest in humanity because we are their younger brothers from the same solar house. Once again, Brian Keneipp is our guest. The website for the Aetherius Society is www.aetherius.org, and that is spelled AETHERIUS.org. So here we have this help coming to us on different vibrations, and you were using the example of how Commander Reichert went down to a planet that was just on the cusp of warp drive, and the planet leader said that they weren't ready for it yet.
Well, yeah, that's right. They because of what happened when they discovered Riker, some people tried to kill him because they thought that he was an evil alien who wanted to kind of destroy their world, and so they reckoned that the majority of the planet wasn't really ready for contact with the outside yet. And I thought it was quite a good analogy because, you know, it has changed quite a bit, but when I first got into the Aetherius Society and this line of thought in the late 70s, you know, that was when abductions was really bad and scary and well thought about a lot, and, you know, implants and all that kind of thing. And people just were very afraid of any kind of extraterrestrials. It has changed, which is quite a nice thing. It's more and more where people are open to the extraterrestrials being friendly and helpful, which is a really nice thing to see.
And yet there are so many people today who claim they have had encounters with extraterrestrials and report nothing but horrific tests, horrific probings, the withdrawal of semen from men, the artificial insemination of women, and the removal of their children before birth. So how do we tell the good from the bad, or just the fiction, which is ugly?
Well, I don't think it's fiction. I think what's happening, and I actually had a chance to talk with Dr. King about this, and he did confirm this. And what the abductions tend to be, and again, I'm not going to say categorically, there's not one single, correct one, but what the vast majority are is that, remember we talked early in the conversation about other realms?
Yes.
There's higher realms and there's lower realms. If you're a really bad guy, you go to a lower realm. If you're kind of a decent or a good guy, you go to a higher realm. And the low realms are like really bad guys. And they get energy through fear. Okay, fear is a mental thought which actually is an energy, and they can use that energy for different things that we don't really want to know about, but they want that energy. And so what they've tapped into, especially some years ago, was this fear of abductions and of aliens and whatnot. And so they will. So when people sleep, they often will project out of their body into a different realm. That's what sleep. And the dream is the astral body trying to, experiencing things on the other realms and trying to explain it to the mental body. So it gets all kind of jumbled up. But that's kind of what's happening. And so if you are traveling, which most people do when they sleep, you can be abducted. Your astral body can be abducted. And these beings from the lower realms they can look like whatever they want to look like. It's very easy to change what you look like on the other realms. It's very mental down there. So you can do that fairly easily if you've got some power. And so they appear to be these grays or whatever they want to be, and they do these things to the astral body to scare them and to get that energy, and also to plant the seed that the extraterrestrials are bad people, because they know they're good people, and they don't. It's not helping them. It's impeding them. So that's what's happening with most. Again, I'm not going to say every single one, but most of the abductions are astral state abductions, which you can't. When you wake up, you wake up. You can't keep the astral body away from the physical body very easily.
Let me ask you something, Brian. Have you seen extraterrestrials?
I haven't seen one, but there was one that came to visit, and I could clearly feel his presence. Well, that happened a few times, but I've never actually seen in the physical form an extraterrestrial. No.
So how do you know they exist?
Well, you can't. I can't say that I absolutely know for a fact.
But isn't this part of the teachings of Dr. King that they do exist? So
absolutely,
if you
I have no doubt that
you have no doubt that they exist.
No.
Why do you believe they do?
Well, through being with Dr. King for 20 years, and then after he's passed away for 20 years, I have had so many experiences where it has just been shown to me, absolutely irrefutably to me, that they do exist. How can I mean, just reading the teachings, reading what they say, listening to the transmissions, doing what they ask us to do, cooperating with them in different of the missions, in the field missions. You can feel their presence. It's I guess it's kind of like, I suppose it's a little bit like someone who's practicing yoga. Someone might ask, how do you know the Kundalini exists? Or how do you know prana exists? And they can't prove it to you, but because they've worked with those energies and they've worked with that Kundalini and that prana, they know within themselves that it exists. But they can't prove to you in a scientific manner that it exists.
So
you know what I mean?
It's basically based on one's own belief.
I wouldn't say belief. I would say experience. You could say that it's a gray area in between the two.
Sure.
But I think belief and faith, you have to start with belief and faith. And then over time, and with me it was a very short period of time. Within a matter of weeks, I had things proven to me.
Right.
But over time, you have things proven to you, and then it becomes belief and experience.
You talked about transmissions. What are these transmissions, and what message did you take away from listening to these transmissions or feeling these transmissions or whatever the transmissions are?
Well, transmissions, I suppose, in these days, it's more considered channeled information,
Okay.
I suppose, the more term that people tend to use. But the first, the 600 that I was referring to were channeled information that came through while Dr. King was in a very high state of meditation. So he raised the Kundalini to a high state and had absolute perfect concentration on a beam of light that was being sent to him. And so this information was, let's call it 99% accurate, whereas most channel information is not anywhere near that, because you have to fight with what your mind is saying to you as opposed to the other person. But this one, when you're in this high state of Kundalini activation, then it is quite accurate. So that's what they are. Now the messages run the gamut. They would say why they're visiting Earth. They would say why mankind is in the difficult situation that we're in. They would say what we should do to get ourselves out of this situation. Explain, what happens after death. Explain what happens in the next million lives to come. For example, the 9 Freedoms tells us what happens all the way up to becoming a planet ourselves, for example, or part of a planet ourselves. So it's I mean, there's thousands of words they sent through. I suppose if I had to sum it up, I would say that the time on Earth today is crucial. We're at a crossroads because the Mother Earth, she is changing. She has been told that she has to raise herself up because of karmic. She's held herself back for so long. So she has to change. And the time we have to, if we want to stay on this beautiful planet, and it's going to be even more beautiful when she releases her energy, then we have to change too. And to do that, most powerfully and effectively now is to throw yourself into service to others. Throw yourself into spirituality, whether it be Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Muslim, Islam, etc. All these are wonderful ways that teach love and compassion. And that's the one key thing that we all have to do together. We have to stop fighting each other. We have to stop having the Buddhists fighting the Hindus or the Christians fighting the Muslims. Everyone who is spiritual has to come together.
But this is nothing new. This is nothing new, Brian.
No, exactly. No, it's not. It's not new.
Yeah.
Exactly the point. We've been trying to do this for millions of years.
Exactly.
But the thing that's new is we have to do it now, or we're going to go to another planet. There's pressure now. There's a lot of pressure to do it.
But what about the people, Brian, who haven't heard this message, who are just living day to day, who are dealing with sickness, poverty, no education, no home, no clothes, terrorist threats, drought, the way that we have screwed up the climate of this planet? What happens to them?
It's up to those who aren't in that situation to go out of our way seriously and vigorously to help them. Let's not decide how many cars to have or how many houses to have. Let's help the people that don't have cars, don't have houses. It's not brain surgery. It's not rocket science. It's simple.
But I agree with you, Brian. My favorite saying is, life is simple. We humans have complicated it beyond recognition.
That's so true. That is so true, Rob.
And I agree that there are so many people in the world today that stick their head in the sand and butts in the air waiting for the problems to be taken care of by extraterrestrials or the second coming of Christ.
Right.
And
that's their job.
Right, and you see, as I see it, those who are going to come and help and save are the same that they see when they look in a mirror. They just don't get it because it's too simple.
That's right. It's our problem. It's our lesson.
Exactly.
And it's not going to be. Someone's not going to drop down and solve all of our problems.
Nope.
They might help here and there, but we have to solve them ourselves. We just have to realize that we are sparks of God, and everyone on earth is a spark of God. Your worst enemy is your brother.
Oh, I think in many circumstances, we are our own worst enemies, and that if we pass the buck to our brother, we're no better than the problem that we're seeking a solution for.
Oh no! What I mean to say is that our worst enemies is just as close to
I see.
as our good brother.
Yeah,
in other words, we're all one.
Yes,
we're all one.
You know, a good friend of mine,
right,
a good friend of mine is a lawyer in Montreal, and one of the phrases he taught me many years ago is, you stay close to your friends, closer to your enemies.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's very good.
And I agree with you that there are so many problems on this earth, and I see Mother Earth getting so fed up with us one day that she's going to do to this time and space in our evolution that she's done many times before. She'll get rid of the germs on the skin.
Well, the thing that I mean, you're right in a way, but the thing that you're missing, I think, is that she's an incredibly evolved goddess, and she sees us as germs, yes, but she knows we're sparks of God, just like she, and she wants desperately to help us realize that we're sparks of God.
Then, if that is the case, if that is the case, why was it in the earlier history of mankind that the Great Flood apparently covered the earth, eradicating all humanity except for Noah, his family, and two of each?
Well, our take on the history of mankind is in the Nine Freedoms, and it's a brilliant introduction. But in essence, we've been on Earth for 18 million years in our belief system. And the planet we had before was called Maldek, and that was in existence between Jupiter and Mars. And again, in an atomic war where we were fighting each other, we destroyed that planet. And that act has set us back for 18 million years. Because that's a bad act.
All right, stand by. I'm going to do an act that's going to put us back a couple of minutes. It's called a commercial break. Brian, great talking to you. Exo Nation, Brian Keneipp is our special guest this hour. Aetherius.org. And Brian is he is Right Reverend of the Aetherius Society. And once again, their website is aetherius.org. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. And welcome back, everyone. The Right Reverend Brian Keneipp is our special guest this hour. www.aetherius.org is the website. First of all, Brian, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always great talking to you and Chrissy and the other members of the Aetherius Society that we've had on the show over the years. Totally and always interesting. Are we in the final days as depicted in the book of Revelations, but in reality this is the dawning of a new age instead of the destruction of the earth?
Well, we are in the final days. But it's not going to be like 10 years from now. If you take the 18 million years since we've been on planet Earth, the final days, and again, we don't have any exact figures. So I'm giving my opinion. This is not the teaching. This is my opinion. But the final days, I think, will be within a few centuries. That's not to say that there's not going to be a lot of calamity and upset in the meantime, but I don't think the final days will be for some centuries to come. But in order to turn what we have around, we have to jump on it immediately, because to raise people's consciousness and to start to get people away from the idea of materialism. It's not going to be a quick fix. It's going to take a tremendous amount of reorientation. And I hate to get political, but one thing about the political climate in America is that people seem to be signaling that they're fed up with the status quo.
Yep.
And there's going to have to be an awful lot more of that in the coming years all around the world. Is people, not the politicians and the businessmen and the millionaires, but the people have to say that they are fed up with the inequality of materialism and politics and the power situation on Earth.
You know,
that will take quite some time.
I enjoy asking my American friends who come on the show, when we talk about politics, is when did it change from we the people to I the person?
Well, it was a slow project. It was a slow process, and right now the corporations and the millionaires own the power in America, and it's got to change. Hopefully, the people will realize that there's more to life than Super Bowls and TV and whatnot, and will start to get fed up with the situation and start to fight back with their vote.
Geez, wouldn't it be nice if people actually stopped to smell the roses again, actually went outside, looked at our beautiful world, and made a commitment to make it better? And instead of seeing people on the street who are hungry and just ignoring them, seeing people on the street who are homeless and ignoring them, do something positive. Because, like you said, Brian, we're all in this together. We're all each other's brothers.
We are. And we also have to remember that everyone who's helping, whether it be a Muslim or a Christian or a Buddhist or even an atheist who's helping, because they see things differently, as long as they believe in compassion and helping others, ignore the rest. It's not important. What's important is their love and their compassion and their help for others. That's important. Don't worry about what they call God or how often they pray. Don't worry about that. It's irrelevant.
And don't forget, Exonation, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And
exactly.
We need to be more proactive in being solutions. And as we do that,
Definitely.
We'll get rid of the problems one by one. Brian, I always enjoy talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, my friend. And to you and the
other pleasure, Rob.
And to you and the other members of the Aetherius Society, my gratefulness and my thanks for all the great work that you guys do.
Thank you very, very much.
Take care, my friend.
Thank you for your help and work.
It's my pleasure.
All right, Rob.
Good night, Brian. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.